637 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into a snowy Wednesday across Middle Tennessee. I'm Dan Mandis. Somebody said I should say when I'm broadcasting from home, broadcasting live from the Dan Cave, which really is what it is here in my basement. Joan Jones is broadcasting from her home in Manchester. KGB is manning the controls in the studio, and there is a lot of snow, and the roads are a mess. Stay home if you possibly can, and we've got your next traffic report coming up at 6:45 here on WTN. Go to watch us on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel if you would. Throw us a bone. But also we have the Daily Dan poll, and the poll today. Elon Musk is out there talking about a $5,000 Doge dividend. And basically the idea is the American people, after all of the savings from Doge, the American people get $5,000 back in a check. It's a dividend from Doge. Some people are saying, no, what we need to do is pay down the national debt. And so we had a nice little conversation about that earlier. So we decided to make it the Dan poll, the Daily Dan poll. And so KGB, very quickly, as we want to get to Jonathan Fahey, but so far, are people wanting the check, or do they want to go ahead and pay down the debt?
Right now, it's at 59% pay off the national debt to 41% of $5,000 for you. So
all right.
They prefer the debt.
All right, very good. Jonathan Fahey joining us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jonathan, always great to have you on. Of course, you formerly of Trump administration number one, where you were a Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and among many other things as well, including performing the duties of ICE as well. So you're more than qualified to talk about a number of different things here on the program today. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I did discuss this right before we went to the bottom of the hour news, is this thought that Donald Trump, what he wants to do is he has signed an executive order, and he wants to rein in independent agencies. He wants to basically seize these independent agencies and bring them under control of the executive branch in the White House. What this ultimately would do is make him the most powerful president ever. I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, it is interesting when seeing all this sort of back and forth on Doge and other things that, there are a lot of these agencies, and sort of, Elon Musk was talking about this last night on, Sean Hannity's show, that a lot of people look at the bureaucrats and the bureaucracy are almost treated as if they're like a fourth branch of government, and you can't even come near them. So a lot of these independent agencies or semi-independent agencies, they really are part of the executive branch. So it's a legitimate discussion whether or not they can be eliminated or be reined in by the executive branch, because as you know, we have three branches of government, and the bureaucracy or other things aren't underneath them, and you can't just create a fourth branch of government or something else independently just through Congress or anything else. You would need to go through the Constitution. So I think it's pretty interesting how it plays out. And a lot of the pushback, as you know, is because Donald Trump's trying to do this, because Joe Biden was pretty aggressive. And I say Joe Biden in quotes, meaning whoever told him what to do was, they were pretty aggressive with things like executive orders and other things to expand the power of the executive branch. So it's a pretty natural thing to do. The only difference is, one, it's Donald Trump, so everything he does is bad according to the media. And two, he's not a Democrat, because the Democrats essentially control the fourth branch of government through bureaucracy. So when he's trying to rein it in, they're really fighting back to keep their own power as Democrats, not really on the principle of limiting some of these agencies.
Well, I mean, look where all of this waste, fraud, and abuse is being found. It is in these agencies. And so it makes all the sense in the world. You've got people that are, I can hear the hue and cry now. I know, Jonathan Fahey, that you can as well. Oh my gosh, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, and, all of these other things. Well, you could also say that these agencies, and I think you just kind of hit on this, these bureaucracies in these agencies, they kind of act like dictators themselves.
You're exactly right. And they act like they are the ones in charge, and the political people just come and go, and they shouldn't be allowed to disrupt what they do. And some of them legitimately think what they're doing is so important, and these political people don't know what they're doing. But that's not the point. Our system is the political people, the executive branch, gets to make the decisions, and that's the way our country was founded. If they want to, change it, they should try to change it legitimately. But yeah, it is funny to watch, and also, if you look back in history, and I can't say this for certain, but it seems like an odd move for a dictator to try to shrink the size of the government, right? You would think the dictator would be trying to, enlarge the government, make this bigger, make that bigger, to bring more and more things under control, as opposed to saying, I want to cut the money and give it back to you, the taxpayers, or pay off the debt for the stuff the people that got here before me spent, because this is money that was spent by Biden, and he's just trying to pay it off. But the Democrats should be thanking him for it, because the sacrifice is being made now for the spending that was done earlier. It's like, wow, they should be thanking him for this. And this just one last point. It's so funny that the Democrats' two biggest hills they're standing on right now are to keep illegal alien criminals in the country and to keep government waste. It's truly astonishing, to throw in, CBS wanting to, censor everyone that doesn't agree with them. But it's just amazing to me that they can't sort of tactically change a little bit to sort of embrace some of this and sort of thank Elon and then attack him sort of a little more subtly. But it's just funny, they can't help themselves, just this reflexive anti-Trump stuff. And it's funny watching the Democrats and how they adjust, because I don't think they're adjusting quite very well at this point.
Oh, they are flailing. And maybe we can get into this a little bit as we go to the traffic report, coming back from the traffic. But the Democrats' reactions to all of this is just ridiculous. And we're going to talk about a number of more things with Jonathan Fahey. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. Jonathan Fahey is joining us. Jonathan, I feel like talking about the hysterical reactions of the Democrats is almost passé at this point. It's been going on for quite some time. Let's just collectively eye roll and move on. I was surprised by this headline. Tanya Chutkan, the judge, refusing to block Elon Musk and Doge from 7 federal agencies. Now, as you know, because you and I spoke about Tanya Chutkan at great length, she is the U.S. District Judge who is incredibly anti-Donald Trump. And yesterday, though, she refused the request of these 14 Democrat state attorney generals to immediately impose wide-ranging restrictions on Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. She basically refused their demand to do so at the current stage of the case because they had not made the necessary showing of irreparable harm. Were you surprised by that?
A little bit, in terms of just because she seemed to be so anti-Trump in those criminal cases, but I think it really just shows how far out there the Democrats are on this stuff, because they're essentially saying, I think, that the only person that could do anything in the executive branch is Donald Trump, and no one else could do anything other than him. So, this idea that you can't delegate things to Elon Musk or to anyone else is really absurd. And, so this idea that Elon Musk, as a special government employee of the executive branch, a political appointee, can't go into these agencies with people to look at waste, fraud, and abuse seems quite absurd to me. This idea that, of course, Donald Trump could independently walk in there and look at the books. And I think that's what they're essentially saying, that, he can't do that. And it really does seem absurd. Of course, Donald Trump can have Elon Musk or anyone else go into these agencies and determine what's waste, fraud, and abuse. And ultimately, Elon Musk isn't deciding things. He may have a lot of influence. He may say, hey, we should do this. And ultimately, the secretaries of these agencies or Donald Trump may agree. But he has no power to independently decide things. And they're trying to, pin this on him, which is a standard Democrat tactic, to always personalize something. So they have to, the new bad guy is Elon Musk because Donald Trump's popular. But it does surprise me, but I think it really ultimately shows that the Democrats really should pick their battles a little more carefully, because, what he's doing, looking at the waste, fraud, and abuse, is not a bad thing. They should stand their ground on, hey, there's a lot of important things going on. We shouldn't just throw it all out, and let's not disparage these and denigrate these federal workers and all these great things they've done. That should be their position, whether or not you agree with it. But it seems like that would be a stronger place to be, and offer some sort of let's work together. But they really won't. I mean, but it's funny that they are just, I think they're like back to what we were saying. I think they're flailing, and I think not all of these, but a lot of these challenges are ultimately going to fail. These types of challenges, I think, certainly will as they go through the courts.
Real quick, we've only got a minute left, but Stephen Miller, I played some audio earlier of Stephen Miller and Brianna Keilar at CNN. They were arguing over illegal aliens getting child tax credits. And basically, the gist of it was that Stephen Miller saying, if illegal aliens have been taking advantage of these child tax credits, he says that this is a felony and it could lead to deportation. But he didn't say it would happen. He said it could happen with IRS investigators partnering with ICE and so forth. What do you think about all that?
I think it really, again, highlights how extreme the Democrats are on the illegal immigration issue, because their position is essentially, it's presumptively that illegal aliens should get to stay, and not only stay, but get all the benefits that you and I get, plus usually some more. So I think it was an interesting thing. But of course, if they find fraud in any of these things, they should at least look at it. They should, weigh it out in terms of importance, like they do with every other thing they find out about. But this idea that it should be even at all acceptable that if they are taking advantage of things they're not entitled to, that should be one more strike against them on the way out of here.
Well, so and listen, Jonathan, you and I and everybody listening would be held accountable if we were found to be taking advantage of the system. Even if we made a mistake, they would be all over us. And so this notion, this is kind of what Stephen Miller said, this notion that these illegal aliens, if they're doing something illegal on tax returns, then they need to be held accountable too, just like American citizens are.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think Stephen, what he was talking about was like this idea that they should have this broad immunity for everything they do here is pretty astonishing. And, I thought that exchange was quite interesting, because it's like he's the one person that the media, I think, fears trying to tangle with on TV, because he just, they can't keep up with him, and it's really entertaining to watch, and he doesn't give an inch, and he shouldn't. But it does show where the Democrats are. And, they're fighting to keep the criminals in this country. Of course, people that commit, smaller crimes, they're going to fight fight to the end to keep them in the country. Yeah,
you know what? They'll take it easy on the actual criminals, but they'll accuse Donald Trump of being a criminal. It is unbelievable. Jonathan, I've got 30 seconds left. Doge dividend checks, $5,000. Do you think the American people should get $5,000 back, or should we use that money to pay down the national debt?
I like the idea of getting money back, because it makes people feel like they're getting something out of the sacrifices being made. I know they are, in fact, when the debt's being paid down, but I do like the idea it might incentive people to stay on board, but I guess your polling isn't quite showing that. And the other thing is, that money does go out in the economy and presumably, stimulates, buying goods and services. But it's an interesting question, and I don't think it's a bad idea. And I love the fact that Elon Musk and Donald Trump will consider new ideas that none of us have been thinking about, or at least I haven't been thinking about. So overall, I think it's a great idea. Either one is good for the country, but I like the idea.
I think they cut the checks right before the midterm elections.
Yeah, that would be great to say, hey, you sacrifice as American citizens with all these cuts, you're going to get something for that sacrifice. I think it would be a great message.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. As always, Jonathan Fahey, Dan Mandis here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Take the Daily Dan poll. That is the Daily Dan poll question. You want $5,000 from Doge, or do you want to pay down the national debt?